Welcome to Live from Your Laptop. Hear straight from Klaviyo's community of some of the fastest growing brands and partners about how they're growing their e-commerce business and owning their destiny. Hosted by Morgan Lasky, for today's episode, we welcome Blueland.
All right. Hey guys, welcome to Live from Your Laptop. Happy Tuesday and belated International Women's Day to all of the incredible women out in the world. My name is Morgan Lasky and I head up our community events here at Klaviyo. I am so glad that you could be joining us today for the next hour. And I want to know who from the community is tuning in. So put your video on, stay on mute though, and make sure you pop into the chat who you are, where you're tuning in live from today, and what company you're with. I am still in Puerto Rico. For those who've been tuning in the past, as you can see, I have a little bit of a new background. I swear I'm never gonna leave the sunshine and warmth, but reality, I have to come back to Boston next week. So I'll be back in Boston next week, but let me know where you're tuning in from. And just in case I have a little bit of internet issues today, I've got another Klaviyo, Leslie, on standby to jump in. Should I go down, but I think we'll be pretty good. Good to go there. If you are joining us again and have tuned in for a past Live from Your Laptop episode, welcome back. I am so excited that this show is adding some value to you and your business. For those of you who are new and joining us for the very first time, we're super pumped to welcome you today. And I hope that you follow suit with all of our loyal community who follows us every week with Live from Your Laptop. So Live from Laptop is talk show. There is nothing fancy about this. We like to keep it real and raw and help you connect to and hear straight from some of the fastest growing brands, agencies, and marketers in the e-commerce space who are using Klaviyo to grow. But we don't just talk about Klaviyo. We don't do sales pitches. That's not what we're about here. In the next hour, you're gonna get actionable marketing and business tips for scaling a business and making the most out of your partnership with Klaviyo. After, we do a fun activity to spice things up and get your mind off of work and onto learning something new that can help you, give you some joy during these new times. We're still in new times, I think we're in. All right, for today's episode, we've got the CMO of Blueland, Gina, here with us. We're gonna talk about everything from their experience on Shark Tank and how that had an impact on their business, to some ideas for building content for your brands, and even a look at some of their great designs from their best performing campaigns and flows inside Klaviyo. Some of you submitted some really great questions when you registered, so I did pull a few of those to ask, but I also encourage you guys to put your questions in the chat as they come up. If we have time, we'll get to them. Sometimes I'll pull a question from the chat if it relates to the question, we'll see, but I like to keep things on schedule. Like I said, if we have time, we'll get to them. If not, I always love the conversations that organically happen in the chat. So feel free to connect with each other in the community in that chat. Afterwards, Gina is going to give us some eco-friendly tips for ways we can eliminate waste and be better to our environment. And then in true Live from Your Laptop fashion, we have a giveaway. Last week we did 2, and I liked what we did last week. I felt like it gave everybody the opportunity. If you had a little bit of a slow finger, you know, it gave you the opportunity to get your answer in. So we're gonna do it again. We're gonna pick the first and the 20th person in the chat with the correct answer at the end. You are going to win a Blueland Clean Suite starter kit so that you can get your clean freak on. Okay, one reminder, that's it. Please make sure you're muted. Let's rock and roll, you guys. Gina, welcome to the show, and please tell us more about yourself.
Hi guys, thanks very much, Morgan. Thanks for having me. And can I just start by saying that I'm really glad that I'm not an influencer or content creator of any kind, because even just trying to keep up with these, the chat window to see where everyone's from is both really exciting, but I will say a little overwhelming. But like Morgan said, I'm Gina. I'm the CMO. I oversee the consumer-facing aspects of Blueland. And Blueland, we are a consumer products good company. We've been live since Earth Day 2019, and the whole premise for the company and the mission behind the company is to eliminate wasteful packaging from our everyday products. Right now, we're focused on single-use plastic, in part because it is incredibly pervasive in our everyday products. And so we've really started with eliminating that aspect of packaging as it relates to cleaning products. So when we launched on Earth Day, we started with 3 cleaning sprays. And the whole premise for the business is reusable packaging. So you get beautiful reusable bottles. And then we've taken sort of the wet formulation and dried it down into a quarter-sized tablet. And with that, you just fill your bottle with water, drop in a tablet, and then you make a full bottle cleaner. We have in-house R&D. You know, I think on the Shark Tank episode, which we'll talk about in a second, we have an amazing scientist who has really sort of put together amazing ideas we've been able to really bring to market. And so we launched hand soap in August of 2019, and that was a fan favorite and runaway hit far before the pandemic. But that really helped, I think, since we had it available during the course of the last year or so. And then we launched 2 new categories back to back in June, July last year with the dishwasher, dish soap, and laundry tablets. And for us being able to tell those stories and launch those products with a mission-led, mission-focused story was really, really exciting for us. And as a result, we've been able to divert about 1 billion plastic cleaning bottles from landfills and oceans through our products, which is really a small fraction of the total that is thrown away every year. But we're really excited about the impact we'll be able to make this year and the years to come.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. I know, like you said, even before the pandemic, when everybody said, okay, I'm going to start washing my hands now, you should have been washing your hands all along. But even before the pandemic, you guys were scaling. And then I think just last year just really was a huge growth spurt for you guys. So we're going to talk about all of that. Let's talk about, in 2019, Sarah, the founder, went on Shark Tank. And I think, you know, I Googled this, I watched the episode. Let's hear briefly about how that experience was for the brand. You know, how did you guys prepare? And this was actually a community question. How did you guys prepare for, you know, as a business, for such an influx of traffic that would happen after that episode aired? And what kind of an impact has this had on the brand?
Yeah. I would say pretty transformative. It really is a once in a lifetime kind of experience when the shark, how impactful Shark Tank can be. As ridiculous as it might sound, it is pretty life-changing in a lot of ways. I think for Sarah and Syed, who were the ones in front of the camera for that experience, it was a very specifically intense experience. We filmed that about a month after we launched. So, you know, the craziness of launching a business and a brand is one thing, but then to, you know, go and pitch on Shark Tank and demonstrate and be pretty exposed in front of people who really are sharks, I think was one really amazing experience that we all walked away from feeling like, wow, we won't get an experience like that again. And so then when we realized we were going to be airing on the season premiere at the end of September in 2019, that's when I think the rubber hit the road, because we really started to think about, okay, this is going to be a big deal. How can we maximize the impact? And I think for a lot of you who are marketers on there and think about marketing from an ROI or an analytical or an acquisition retention perspective, those are all very, very fair and valid. I will say we view Shark Tank as something like a brand marketing initiative, and the right brand marketing initiative will have a huge halo and a huge impact on all the other parts of your marketing mix and your marketing channels. And so for us, that's sort of how we viewed it in terms of how we went and then prepared, right? So I would say the 2 biggest areas where we focused from a preparation standpoint, one was the website. We've heard horror stories about how a website can crash when there's all this influx of traffic and people are all ready and they're really excited. I think one of the big benefits of the platform we're on Shopify Plus, obviously great partners of Flavio's, but that really helped us because we got good line of sight into how to best prepare for that influx and making sure that everything could stay stable. Also really leveraging all of the opportunities on your website to, you know, showcase to a Shark Tank viewer, hey, yes, you found the right place, right? You're here, you found it. Here's the product that's being featured on the show or on the segment. Make the funnel really easy for people so that they can just click and buy right there. And then now that we've moved out of just linear TV into OTT and streaming, we actually got to see the benefit of that when that episode then got posted to Hulu the next day. And so you continue to see those trail off a bit, but the effect is still there. And so every time we get re-aired, we actually got re-aired at the end of December that year, and Kim Kardashian organically picked it up and tweeted about it. And that's something you can't pay for. I mean, you can't pay for it, it's expensive. But if Kim K is going to organically tweet about you multiple times, that's something that we would have never had the opportunity to do without Shark Tank. So if you're wondering, is it worth you pursuing that path? I would say absolutely. We walked away with an investment from Kevin O'Leary, he is actually quite wonderful. He's actually very nice and lovely to work with. And, we've been able to leverage that and parlay that in other ways as well. So he was featured in our TV commercial. We started running TV a couple months after that spot, and he did a TV commercial that we've been running for over a year at this point, and really leaned into his personality, right? Again, opportunities like that you don't really get if you don't have that type of brand marketing initiative underway. On the marketing side, this is a great acquisition channel in terms of a program or a platform like this. And so we really focused on the acquisition side of the marketing funnel as it related to paid social or related to paid search, and just really thinking about where can we think of all the traffic, how do we maximize how we capture that and get them to the website and get them to check out as quickly as possible. The PR side, I think a lot of people try and maximize those opportunities, and you should, because it is a once in a lifetime experience, and you should try and ensure that your brand is being positioned. Editing, you don't know how that episode's going to turn out sometimes, so you got to cross your fingers and hope. And we didn't actually see it until it aired, so we didn't know what to expect either. Right. And so I would say, do what you can, and then you sort of have to hope for the best and triage when you can. I think. Funny anecdote, we trained everyone on our team to be a customer service associate that day. And, it was a fun pizza party, but then everyone was furiously typing email responses or text message responses to try and keep up with it. But it was a really memorable team experience also.
Wow, that's really cool. Like from all around, didn't know any of that. So we just got like an insider perspective of being on Shark Tank, and that's super cool. Love how you guys prepared for that. And I also love that you took all of your teammates and they were all part of that experience with you. That is super important. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Mr. Wonderful. He seems a little cranky on TV, but apparently you said that he's great. So
he is. He's continued to be a really good partner for us too. And he lives up to his namesake.
That's awesome. That's really good to know. Okay, so this particular question comes from the community. What tips do you have for introducing a product in an industry that has so many large corporations like Method, Clorox, Lysol, Mrs. Myers, to give an example?
Yeah. So Sarah, who's our CEO, I think for her, the journey around low waste living really transpired when she became a new mom, and she learned a lot more about the microplastics issue in our food and water. And when she was going from breastfeeding to milk and formula, it didn't matter what water she chose, everything had microplastic. And so in the course of her deciding to eliminate plastic from her life, she saw that when she went to the aisle, there was no choice, right? There was no other alternative than products packaged in single-use plastic. And the cleaning category is one of those really big categories in which that's the case. And so for us, I think it's less about the fact that there are these large corporations, and it's more about the fact that we're giving consumers choice to an alternative that doesn't really exist from these players. And not only that, we're able to put, human faces and names to it and really showcase what it's like to build a business from the ground up, which these businesses have done that already at 50, 100 years ago kind of deal. And so for us being able to showcase that, tell a really personal story, and for Sarah, this is a really personal endeavor, is a huge benefit for us. And, the category, there's enough to go around, and more people are looking for natural alternatives or eco-friendly alternatives when it comes to their products, that we're there as an option for them to evaluate. And if you're being able to get at other value props of things that people care about buying and stocking up in bulk without taking up too much space, minimizing how much plastic waste you're generating, those are all things that we feel like we can speak to really uniquely.
It sets you guys apart in your category. Like that's what you do. So it's finding, yes, there's going to be a million makeup brands out there. There's going to be a million but like what makes your product stand out? Like what makes it unique?
Yeah, I think for us, the whole concept of being mission-led and mission-focused, right, has been a really big one. The behavior and the way that we develop products, I also think is very specific and unique to us. Like I said, we do our R&D internally, and we're always constantly optimizing between how do we ensure that it's effective, how do we ensure that the ingredients are safe to use and they're not harmful to people or planet, how do we think about packaging to make sure that's reusable, or it's not going to do anything detrimental in terms of its impact. We really try and go through the full course in the course of developing a product to evaluate all of that. And, because if you ask the average person, which for us, we want to be in every home in America, right? That's the goal here of what we're trying to do when we're talking about instituting behavioral change, right? So if I can't meet your bar because what you care about is an effective product, then I haven't done my job as a marketer or as a company to ensure that it's easy for you to switch and for you to buy into this lifestyle, right? And we recognize that. And so we want to make it easy and accessible for people to make this switch and make it a permanent one, which is why we also try and focus on developing product against really core value props for the category and not just specific to what we think is important about our product.
Right. So that's a really good point. And we are going to definitely get into more of that R&D and consumer research in the next question. But did you guys is that kind of category, is that community, is there a community around that? Did you talk to others in the business of that kind of industry to kind of get insights or direction when you first started the company?
No. I mean, I think yes, one does their basic research, right? To understand the dynamics and things like that. But I think we felt like we'd come across such a unique idea that we wanted to really bulldoze our way through it in terms of bringing it to market as quickly as possible to allow people to really latch onto this opportunity, because it's not easy, because otherwise you're at home trying to DIY your own products, right? And then on the other end, you have brands that have come before us that have set a really great bar for understanding how to develop an ingredients profile or how to really think about communicating in this category that's growing and continues to really grow. We've just come in and added an additional, customer benefit to it.
Yeah, boom. And you didn't want anybody stealing your idea, so I get that. So you keep that on the down low. All right, cool. So let's talk about, you guys put a really high focus, and we were leaning into that in that last question, on really understanding the consumer and why they buy cleaning products. What has the team learned and continue to learn through investing so much time and resources into this type of research? And what's maybe 1 to 2 surprising facts that came out of this?
Yeah, sure. We really prioritize customer feedback, customer experience, customer research, insights, all sort of within the same funnel, and make sure that it gets flows back to different parts of the business so that it is really consistent and coherent, right? So just as an example, before we launched, we were adamant, we were convinced that we were going to launch with a specific material for our cleaning sprays. We thought it was going to be glass. We're like, this is the right option. This is the right choice. Glass is a very sustainable material. It's clearly the material of choice for a lot of brands when it comes to sustainable packaging. When we did the research, over 80% of families said that they would not choose glass because of the impact it would have when they're picking it up, putting it down, and it's shattering and it being around kids, right? It's just not a safe experience. And so for us, we made a very specific, dedicated decision to instead choose a different material that would be more durable, be reusable, but still make the mass impact that we were looking to make, right? We'd rather make a bigger impact that's maybe slightly imperfect so that we can reach as many people, as opposed to a really small group doing things perfectly, which is really a general philosophy that we apply across a lot of our other aspects of the business. I think the other one is subscription. I think a lot of people in the course of launching a new business, they see all these other businesses launching subscription. They're like, subscription's the way to go. In this category, again, we found that the research that actually subscribe and save type behavior is very, very small. In certain categories that are higher replenishment, you'll see it more, but it's still a fairly small percentage. And actually, there's been this backlash against subscription of people saying, I have too many. I think I saw an app the other day to help you manage your subscriptions. Isn't that another subscription?
Yeah.
So, I think for us, we actually actively chose not to launch with a subscription and instead decided to demonstrate value through our refills and offering them in bulk in packs of 3, 6, or 9 for the tablets, for example. And that actually unlocked a lot of opportunity that we probably would have otherwise left on the table. And then we added on the subscription afterwards to offer that to customers who are looking for that kind of convenience. But jury's still out as to whether or not that was the right decision. I think based on the research, we feel pretty confident that it was, but now we feel like we have a lot more room to play and test and learn on that front.
Right. I mean, I think we all know, like, giving a customer options is your best bet. Convenience, options, making it so that how they want it. But where did you go to do this research? Was this something like a company that you used, or did you guys put out surveys to your current customers? How did you gather all this research, or what was this planning process to come up with all this?
Yeah, so we do a mix of quantitative and qualitative research, meaning consumer surveys, mostly online, and then also qualitative in terms of interviews. It's all done in-house, partly because this is something that I'd done in a prior lifetime ago. And I think it's really hard, especially early stage, to not hear it directly and not ask it yourself. You have to put in that legwork because it's invaluable to you later on down the road.
Yeah, awesome. All right, cool. So moving on to the next question. Aside from focusing heavily on, that target consumer, you guys also put a ton of effort into your customer evangelism. A few questions from the community that came in about this. What are some of your customer marketing tactics that are working well? I think Michaela had asked, how are you educating them, to choose you guys or to convert from big brands like the Methods or the Lysols? You know what I mean? Let's talk through kind of those customer marketing strategies.
Yeah, we use a handful of channels to really promote and talk about brand. I think the 2 biggest places of real estate for that for us are our website and Instagram. I think there's other platforms that are growing, changing, evolving, but that's where we've probably spent a disproportionate amount of time. The sad lesson that we've learned, unfortunately, is that there is no silver bullet, and any learning that you get typically will sort of dissipate by the following week or the following month. You have to keep testing and learning. There's really no other way, and you have to continue to try different things and experiment and be willing to take those risks. We, for example, had a type of content series that we sort of leaned on because we got really good engagement out of it early on. But as we started to see that sort of taper off, we're like, okay, we can't just keep relying on this one way of telling this story. We have to try it a different way. And so it creates a lot of, I think, pressure on the team to constantly be trying to come up with something new and fresh, but that's really the name of the game because everyone's attention spans are so short. You need to, if you think about it in scrolling through an Instagram feed, you need to get something that's going to stop someone right then and there. And tonally, we also go back and forth. We talk about things that are really funny or things that are very education oriented or things that are maybe a little bit more serious. And we really try and create variety and demonstrate that what we're promoting is not just about our products. In fact, actually, our products come second. It's really about our mission and the lifestyle that goes behind our mission that are fundamentally more important. And so if someone walked away after having looked at our Instagram and said, hey, I picked up an interesting tip and I'm going to follow Blueland because I really believe in what they're trying to institute as sea change, and they didn't buy the product, but they then told someone else about Blueland, I'm okay with that, right? That still is an effective way that I've done my job as a marketer, right? Had they bought it, great, but it doesn't have to be that per se. And I think that's sort of the guys that we look at a channel like Instagram, instead of it being so revenue, or performance driven, using it really for brand and really to build those. I think in that same vein of testing and learning, not being so precious with brand, right? I think as founders or as early stage startup members, you get really attached to your own ideas. And it's not that we haven't at least found that being so attached to that is actually the best approach, right? We have principles and values that we will stick to day in, day out, and our community will not waver us from those. But how open you choose to be, how inclusive you choose to be, how much you choose to listen when people are telling you things is important. And, the community gives back what you give in that regard. And so I think from that perspective, taking feedback, whether it's product related, whether it's tips, education tip related, whether it's cluing us in on something that we should be paying attention to. We listen to all of that and we include that as part of brand and community going really hand in hand, because it's really important.
Yeah, I like that. Leading with mission, not with product. I think, you have to decide if that's the right way to go for you and your brand, obviously, but
yeah.
I like seeing companies that do that. I don't get an email, even the first couple emails, they're very educational. They feel inspirational. They're not trying to sell me. And I think you guys do a very good job about that.
Yeah, it's a balance. And I think it depends on which channel you're into, right? We aren't really looking to convert Instagram into necessarily our top revenue driving channel. And so we have a bit more permission. But also, let's be practical, right? How many people want an Instagram feed that's full of cleaning products? I would love to meet whoever those people are. I'm assuming it's a fairly small group on Instagram.
It's the clean freaks.
But then you also have people like our channels like email, where you can find more of a balance between sort of commercial versus lifestyle content. And you can blend those two or test and learn in ways that are also a little bit less obvious. Right. And it's maybe a little bit less public, that allows you to sort of churn through and get the learnings that you want to apply them forward.
Sure. A lot of good tidbits there. All right. Next question. Let's chat about your marketing strategy a tad. So you guys work with a lot of channels. We want to know what particular channels have proven to be really effective and scalable for the brand to reach new buyers. Any tips for our community when thinking about where to spend their marketing budget?
Yeah, it's a test and learn again. I think some channels are more investment upfront intensive, like TV, than others. And as a brand, you got to decide when it's right for you to decide to do that. For us, we decided fairly early on, only because we saw the success of something like Shark Tank and really wanting to get after a mass audience and really wanting to ensure that we could reach people that we wouldn't be able to reach through other channels. I think attribution's a really important part of that equation as well. Are you pretty distinct and clear as to where your traffic's coming and which channels are going to be the most converting for you? It's hard to avoid certain channels that you should always be thinking about or realistically be in, such as paid social and search. Those are still pretty material channels for us. And affiliate, we've been pretty specific and narrow about how we've gone after that channel, partly because it can get really unwieldy. And it's one of those things where you walk through that door, it's really hard to walk back out. Yeah. And so our approach is, can we do a small test and learn in the channel? If so, let's try it and then expand if it works. Or if a place like TV, where we've seen proof points leading up to it, where we think it's a really good analog, we're willing to make that one-time investment, even if it's a bigger investment. And if it pays off, we'll continue to invest. And then the third bucket is probably channels where you have to be pretty strategic up front, and then either keep it narrow and expand it out from a scope perspective as time goes on, or just make sure you're really working with the right partner who's going to lead you and ensure that they can stay true to the strategy that you want. To ensure that you're still sort of hitting the targets that you need to.
Right. So you guys have TV, you're doing, now when you say TV, is that like spots on, like, this is going to sound really kind of stupid, but like I learn something new every day when I do this with you guys. But is it like cable TV, or are you doing more focused like Hulu, Netflix, like that kind of TV?
Yeah, so we're doing linear or traditional TV. Okay. So like, a spot that you'll see on your box top kind of deal versus OTT or streaming. OTT or streaming, we've actually stayed away from to an extent. We see it in some ways like, YouTube, where the visibility and the attribution is actually not as strong there as you see on other digital channels. So it's not quite there. And it's going after a similar audience that we're already getting through attributable digital channels in some ways, which is why we've decided to diversify that way. But that would be how we think about TV today.
And then I'm seeing in the chat, they're wondering about, aside from paid social, email, TV, are you guys doing any kind of SMS or anything else there? Okay.
We are. SMS, we've gone back and forth on how much of an acquisition versus a retention channel we think of it as. I think given our business model, we see it in some ways more as a retention channel for right now, partly because we've been very, very fortunate in that because we haven't done discounts or promotions really to date, growing that list requires a bit of that. And so you end up cultivating two different segments of customers. So it's actually been a stronger performing retention channels in some ways than an acquisition one, but something we're still continuing to test through.
Test and learn. That's what it's all about. Try it, do a little test subject, and then if it works, make it bigger.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's jump into Klaviyo. I'd love to learn, well, I'm sure not just me, but the whole community listening in today would love to learn more about some of your tactics inside the platform. And we're definitely going to show some examples. You guys have some really beautifully designed emails. So we're going to show you some of the best performing ones. Loads of segments. You guys, I want to talk through some segments, and then some amazing flows that you have set up as well. When it comes to creating triggers and conditional splits, you guys are really, really good at that. I also took a few questions from the community. So let's start with this one. How do you personalize your flows and think of what content to use in them? And I know while you talk through this, we do have an example of just the I think there's two examples from one of your flows. I believe it's I
think this is post-purchase. This is probably
post-purchase. So talk through, how you guys think about flows, how you're personalizing them, and then maybe talk through these two examples.
Yeah. So for us, we started by thinking about, again, a balance of lifestyle versus commercial, right? I think the first email you get out of the series is thanking you for joining the mission, because at the end of the day, that's what your purchase is contributing to. Yeah. We actually get a lot of people replying to this email. It's quite inspiring. And I think the personalization aspect of it is also really nice. And again, putting a face to the brand and putting your name on the email has done wonders in terms of getting this to be a strong performing email, both from an engagement perspective as well as a commercial perspective within the flow. We always view flows very much as, each position has value attached to it. The earlier the position, the stronger the value. We made a deliberate choice to not make this a commercial email though. And I think it's paid off in the fact that people feel like there's a reason to return just based on the products they're buying and the mission and the packaging itself. The packaging is sort of set up for you to come back and buy more refills. So we feel like we can get you there without necessarily having to be too pushy about it. And then after that, the flow sort of breaks out based on what you've purchased. Thankfully, we have a very narrow product assortment for the most part that we've evolved as we've added more products and launched them. And so we then move into sort of the upsell portion of how can we get you to add on other products? If you had a good experience with our hand soap, why not try laundry, right? Let us do a quick bit of education on why this product is different, why it's relevant for you, and see if you're interested. We are still a pretty small company, so we've also been able to benefit from taking emails that we used for campaigns and actually repurposing them for flows, which I would say if you guys have an evergreen product assortment, that's something that we've sort of done.
Absolutely.
Especially when we're in a pinch. And then closing the loop on that, again, to provide value to a customer saying, okay, you've bought the model, you're probably running low on refills at this point. Do you want to replenish, right? Close the loop, make the full impact on not having bought additional single-use plastic by buying the refills instead.
Yeah.
And that flow, we've tested it. We've tried a handful of different things. Now that we've had subscription added onto the business as well, it opens up a lot of other opportunity. And so it's something that we've been really working to refine, and we'll continue to sort of work on here, I think probably in the next quarter or so with our very, very helpful CSM. So.
Yeah. When I was actually, so Caitlin is your CSM. Yes. I was chatting with her a little bit, and she was just over the moon with you guys. I mean, that flow, when I looked at it, I was like, damn, this is awesome. Like, it was really, really intricate, and you guys really took time to set that up. So kudos to whoever thought through that. And I like that you're using triggers and upselling and replenishing, all good stuff to use in that post-purchase flow. I do want to point out that what I also noticed in that flow was you do almost every one of those emails in the flow was an A/B test.
Yes.
You're testing, I believe you were either testing subject line, or I'm not sure if it was content or not. Do you want to talk a little bit about A/B testing
Sure.
and how that's had an impact for you guys?
Sure. We're big believers on low lift tests. if you have it's basically free, so to speak, other than maybe some like brain power thinking about a different subject line. That's the beauty in some ways of SMS too, where you don't have to try and come up with a visual or creative and put burden on other members of the team to produce content, right?
Right.
And so why not take that free opportunity? So subject lines are a pretty big one. We always do a subject line test for anything, whether it's for a campaign or for a flow. And then every once in a while for content, if we feel like there's a specific reason for us to do it, we'll either swap positions or we will, adjust snippets within an email to really try and understand if it's going to help improve click-through. And so we've tried a handful of those. I think A/B still tends to be the big one, because if no one's opening the email, it doesn't really matter if people are clicking. So that's where we've been spending a lot of our time.
Yeah. I do see Stephen asked, how much volume do you really need to get a meaningful result from A/B testing? And I think we actually were talking a little bit about that last week with Truff, who was on the show. And I think it's a good point. How do you guys kind of determine that? Because I know you have a lot of segments, so you're not just blasting, so how do you look at like, what are meaningful results of A/B testing?
Yeah, patience is a really big thing when it comes to email A/B testing, we've found. I think for a campaign, we'll usually set it because the file is big enough where, 10, 15% of a file is going to tell you whether or not one or the other. When we look at it post and look at how the B test, or the non-winner as we call it, performs, the metrics typically bear out that the A or the winner did end up winning. I think leaving it to run over time for flows, it just takes more patience. And the thing is, what we do is we don't ever just do A and B and then pick A in a trigger. We'll do A and B, and then once A has won, we'll put it up against C and just continue to do that, because it'll either reinforce A as the winner or you'll find something that'll do better. So it's not so absolute in terms of the performance. It's always about how can you incrementally improve it time over time through that A/B process.
That's really, really good point. Really, really good stuff. Hopefully, Stephen, that answered your question. So let's talk about open rates. So someone in the community asked, how do you get higher open rates? And I think there's a lot that goes into that. So let's talk about maybe any subject line or segmentation tips that you have. I know, making sure that you're sending to like legitimate emails helps too. Deliverability. So I think we have a screenshot here of one of your highest open rate campaigns. This came from a pretty big audience. Sometimes we're like, oh, well, if they only sent to 10 people. No, they did not. It came from a pretty big audience. And what was, I don't know what the subject line was for this was. I thought I wrote it down. Wait, I actually do think I have it. But anyhow, if you want to start talking through open rates, and how people can get better at open rates.
Sure. This actually was not a planned email. It was an in-season email that we developed, partly because we developed a new product assortment that didn't exist before. I would say this is like the perfect storm of opportunity when you're trying to maximize traffic and conversion. And then after that, we always try and test like a more branded subject line versus a literal one. And the time in which we sent this, if I remember correctly, was in the May timeframe when people were looking for this product. And general philosophy, don't get in their way, right? So we said, we've created this new this hand soap duo is here. The phrase is here. People really like that. They feel like it's clear to them something new has arrived, right? And they knew the hand soap was a category that was of interest to them. And then I think from a layout of the email, it's very literal. It's very clear what you're getting, right? There's no confusion. I actually personally find this email to be a bit plain from the other designs that we do, but I think it goes to show that's sometimes what people need, right? Again, don't get in their way, give them the information they want, make it easy to shop, and make it easy for them to decide whether or not they want to buy right then and there. So then the website doesn't have to do as much work.
Right.
And so that was probably, and we've repeated some version of this email time and time again, and it continues to do well, which I think it also speaks to, our product assortment and merchandising and the product team for having developed like a strong offer out of the gates.
Right. So I'm looking at your subject lines because you did obviously A/B test this, and the introducing the hand soap duo was your winner. It's so like you said, clean, to the point, like what the customer needs, what they want. So that's awesome. So as far as because I know like obviously subject line is important, but I would imagine like segmenting. So like making sure that, you know what, we'll go into the next question, which is about segments. Like how are you segmenting? What does that entail for you guys? Are you basing it off of like engagement tiers, costs, you know, the amount people purchase from you? Do you have like loyalty or VIP customers?
We try not to overcomplicate it, and I think this is a little bit where segmenting can create analysis paralysis. Also, once you start to create, when you start to create segments that then also run into each other, and you're running multiple campaigns at the same time, it can also, you know, I think undo a lot of the work that you're looking to do. So we keep it pretty simple. We keep it focused based on product purchases and how people naturally consume based on product categories, right? So it, you know, yes, if you buy the cleaning sprays, I want a chance to give you I want to give you an opportunity to buy laundry and dish and hand soap, but I don't want to forget the fact that you started by purchasing cleaning sprays, right? It's not rocket science in that way. There are more analytics in terms of like how frequently do you replenish? How do you think about the 3 cleaning sprays and things like that? But, you know, beyond that, you don't need to make it more convoluted, so to speak. I think as we add more products to the assortment, it will get a little bit more complex. But I think also inserting value in there, you know, tips on how to best use your products, tips on how to reinforce the lifestyle that you're now participating in with this product is a really important one, and really trying to draw it back to product again. For this channel in particular has actually been a big benefit to us.
Yeah. And you guys use Klaviyo for creating these segments and then analyzing how they're doing, right? Yeah. So Klaviyo has been a huge asset for you guys in that way. Cool. So actually you were kind of going into it, but because I think segmenting has a lot to do with cadence and making sure, like sending cadence and making sure, you know, that you're not sending too many emails to people at once or have conflicting messages. Like you said, like, just because they bought the laundry detergent, like, doesn't mean that they don't want to buy the tablets or something. So how do you guys manage your sending cadence and not sending, you know, flows and campaigns?
If I were a fashion brand that had 200 items, I probably would answer this question very differently.
Yeah.
We have, at the end of the day, 7 product categories. And I think last count like 23 SKUs or something like that. So it's not, you're going to bother someone more by sending them an email all the time about the same products. So there is this balance of like segmenting to send to one group about product and then, you know, a different group and resting that part of the file, or also just balancing it out with lifestyle. And if we don't have anything to say, we just err on the side of not saying it, right? And instead try and leverage flows or other things that are working in the background to do more work from a revenue perspective. And I think that's a strategy that's going to be more beneficial to us down the road. We've been putting a lot of time into you know, investing and cultivating in those flows as a result. But cadence is, general rule of thumb is, if you don't have anything to say, don't say it, and leave them alone. And then it does make the moments when you do send something more special, so that the likelihood of open rates and things like that, it's all sort of connected. And then for big moments, we also reinforce with a resend. If you didn't open it, we'll send it to you again to make sure you didn't miss it, because we're inundated with emails.
Yeah.
We're all inundated with emails.
Yeah, it's such a good point. You know, I see emails I get emailed by some brands like twice a day, every day. It's crazy. I don't even open them because like, they're not saying anything new to me. They're not telling me, you know, they're not giving me anything special or, you know, surprising me or delighting me. Yeah. So I like that. If you don't have anything to say, just don't say it and let it happen kind of organically and naturally.
Exactly.
Okay, last question about Klaviyo. Who designs your beautiful emails? And are you using Klaviyo's template builder?
So we are currently not. We do design our emails in-house. Okay. Are a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, I will say. And it's been a really interesting evolution from when we started. I think when we started, we used Template Builder just because we didn't have any help. Yeah. You know, we tried to do what we could, but then over the period of time, we sort of recognized how we could better leverage the tools behind the scenes, right? Yeah. So personalization of the letter and things like that. but still keep sort of a branded point of view in terms of what we're presenting to the world. So we've actually moved away from that and do more of the things in-house.
Yeah, I think Template Builder is great for people that don't have like a design team or even a designer to help them. It's a really, really great asset. But whoever's designing your emails are doing a fantastic job. They're incredibly beautiful. I know you don't probably want to tell who that person is because they're going to try to steal them. So yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all of those kind of Klaviyo insiders with us. I have one last question that comes from the community before we get into talking about waste tips and giving away 2 prizes today. What are 3 things you do to grow the business if you had an extra $1 million to work with?
You know, I think the 3 things. One is testing and learning in new channels, which I think a lot of the marketers here will probably know it's getting more and more expensive as time goes on to do. So that actually eats into the $1 million pretty quickly. But testing and learning is just so inherent and baked into how we operate the business. I think it's really important. And there's still a handful of channels left that we want to go after from an acquisition perspective. So I think that's a big part of it. I think the next is really around new products, whether that's expanding on the products we have and allowing for, to meet the needs of certain niche groups or things like that, whether it's launching new products. I think there's a whole host of product categories that we had even yet to scratch the surface of to really make an impact from a mission perspective that we are really chomping at the bit to go after. And I think relatedly, the third thing is then investing back into the community. We are a small business, but we're really, really, really passionate about advocating for protecting both people and planet and doing what we can to amplify voices to really make sure that everyone's voice is heard in the course of really trying to save our collective home, the planet. So I would say if I had to pick, those would be the 3. I'm sure there's a long, long wish list that every marketer has that's longer than the 3, but I would say those are my top 3 for now.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. Well, great. Thank you so much, Gina, for taking the time to share all those great insights and knowledge with our community today. Before we get into talking about how to keep the environment cleaner and, make your space a little less wasteful, I'd like to take a small commercial break to know if you guys would recommend this show to others in the e-commerce community. I'm going to launch a poll. Please let us know if you like the show today and if you would recommend it to others. While we do that, I'm gonna let Gina kind of take it away and give us her spiel on low waste tips and what we need to know about having a cleaner environment.
Cool. So I will say I started on this journey in earnest, I will say, working with and helping start Blueland. I think there was a lot of chatter around like plastic bottles when it comes to water bottles, or coffee cups or straws or plastic bags. Those are really the big 4 when it comes to low waste living. And I think a lot of people really think about the impact that can have on the environment. Moving past, I would guess, say like level 1 of that journey, the home actually can generate a ton of waste. And I think for a lot of us who've been stuck at home during this period, it's probably become visually much more obvious as to how much waste we're generating. And so wanted to share a handful of different tips and things people could do to start making an impact. First is an audit. I think a lot of the times in the eco-friendly zero waste living space, there's a lot of shame that's imparted on people for not participating. And that's really the antithesis of how we think about it. We love to celebrate progress over perfection. And so the first thing we always ask and suggest is to do an audit around your house. There's actually a lot more plastic than you might think that there is. And so if you go room by room, right? So just as an example, in the kitchen, your dish soap bottle, that's single-use plastic. You could replace it with our product, or you could replace it with another reusable dish soap product. But the other thing is the plastics, the sponge you use to clean is actually plastic. And so once you're done with that, you can't typically recycle it. It's also soggy and gross. So another option you have is like a cellulose plant-based sponge. There's walnut alternatives as well. There's silicone alternatives, a dish brush. these are all going to be wood or bamboo based, and then plant or cellulose based. So it's a very easy swap that you can make that actually doesn't require a behavioral change, and from a price perspective can still be price comparable.
Right. So do you recommend not microwaving your sponge then? Because there's a lot of people out there that say microwaving your sponge and reusing it.
Yeah, the research is torn. I think the recommendation would be to not, just making sure you're cleaning it out, but that's a little bit harder for me to give a definitive answer on. But yes, we have heard a lot of people doing that. I think the other area, particularly in the kitchen, is paper towels. That's a really big one because, again, those single-use paper towels, once you use them, you can't use them again. Bamboo alternatives are out there, which are good or better than the regular paper towels, but we actually talk about reusable paper towels, or an unpaper towel, which is essentially a cotton cloth. Again, these are really easy. It's a really easy swap to make, and then you just roll them just like you would on your paper towel dispenser, and you can just use one, toss it in the washing machine, and then you're good to go. And it actually, especially being stuck at home, it can make a really, really huge impact on just eliminating the amount. And not only that, those paper towels come wrapped in plastic, right? So again, it's another way to just cut that out. Other areas, dryer balls instead of lint sheets. Those lint sheets are typically plastic based. Your toothbrush, there are bamboo based alternatives. You will have to separate the bristle because the bristle, it might be boar or plastic, but either way, if you're going cruelty free, it'll likely be plastic, and you're gonna have to separate that. But the bamboo handle will then be compostable. So those are all sort of some of the really quick and easy ones. But other things that you guys maybe use in the course of the day, your hair tie. So as an example, Morgan, that you're using, not to hide your wrist. But there are plastic free alternatives for those. Band-aids. So a lot of the disposable items in your home or in your cabinet all typically have plastic-free alternatives. And it just takes a little bit of research to find them. I will say we as a team try and avoid Amazon in some ways just from the shipping impact and try to shop local where we can. But Amazon is a very, very helpful resource, especially if you're looking to make some, like buy a kit or swap for low waste living, because there are countless amounts.
Sorry. I tell everybody else to stay on mute, and then my dog goes.
Well, it sounds like your dog wants to join in on lifestyle tips, of which they're more than welcome.
Always. Where I go, he goes. So he's always.
But that's actually another good one where, the doggy bags, those are also, there's compostable or biodegradable options for those as well. So, again, it starts with the audit. And I think once you do the audit and assess, it's actually not the right choice to then just throw everything out and replace them with the reusable version. We recommend that you use down what you already have and ensure that you can responsibly dispose, recycle, reuse, repurpose the items that you do already have before you go out and buy new, right? We're not here to promote just buying new stuff to replace your old stuff, right? It's about ultimately replacing where you can when it's appropriate to then promote reuse and a more circular economy.
Like
so that's really the idea.
It's like a lifestyle change, like a diet. You're not just gonna stop using things. You have to slowly get into it. Have you guys seen that over the last year when everybody was, really in their homes, the waste has gone up more? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, however, if I were to personally calculate my trash consumption in my home versus if I tallied it all everywhere else that I was, creating it actually might be less. We do an exercise in July, as well as we just did one in February, where we collected all of our trash, like our true trash that you can't recycle, you can't compost, you can't, repurpose and reuse, and you have a jar. And the jar is there to really help you assess how much waste you're truly generating. And I will say that 95% of my trash was flexible plastic from food packaging. It's really, really hard to avoid. And, I'm not about to starve myself. Mentally, this pandemic is hard enough. We as a team are very much about promoting, doing what you need to do to ensure that you're getting through what is a very strange time, right? And so that was the majority of my trash, but it was a really helpful point of reflection for me to recognize, actually, this is an area where I can be more conscious, go forward and find alternatives that don't require that much packaging, and to do something a little bit less.
Awesome. Well, thanks for those tips. Last question. What is your favorite Blueland product out of the 7? You said you have 7 products?
Yes, we do.
What's your personal favorite?
The hand
soap.
Part of the reason is because we did our first brand collaboration back in the fall and the hand soap was one of the products that got redesigned. We're actually about to launch another one in a couple of weeks, but this is a really great. There's also scent varietals for hand soap, which don't necessarily exist for other products. So there's just a lot more option to personalize and customize what we have here. And so I think from that perspective, it fits my lifestyle and my preferences a little bit better. And I just use it constantly. So I feel like I have a pretty good, I think a close second would be the dish soap, only because like stovetops gets really greasy and disgusting. And when I cook, and the dish soap, because of the formulation, is actually super effective as a stovetop cleaner. That is probably the best thing I've been able to use. And I feel very accomplished every time I walk away with a clean stove. Oh,
I'm with you there. I can't stand dirty countertops.
Yeah.
Whoever lives with me, I'm like, there's a crumb on the countertop.
Exactly.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of those great waste tips with us, Gina. I'm sure there's a lot more on the Blueland website if anybody wants to learn more. Great. So we have our trivia question. I'm going to let Gina ask this. I want everyone to get your fingers ready. Again, we're giving away a clean, sweet starter kit from Blueland. We're giving away 2 of them. So the first person and the 20th person. So I'm going to announce the first person, and then I'm going to close the show out. And then we are going to announce the 20th person, because it takes Trevor on the back end to count a little bit, because there's like 200 of you. So he's got to count through. So, all right, we're ready. What is the question, Gina?
All right. So I gave a small hint at the very beginning, but in terms of cleaning products in single-use plastic bottles, how many of them are thrown out in the US each year?
There we go. I feel like you guys are going slower now that I announced we're doing a 20th winner. I feel like you guys are like strategizing. There we go.
I think we have a winner.
We do. We do have a winner. Let's see here. I'm scrolling up. Jason Hudson, 1 billion. You are right, sir. You are so right. Congratulations, Jason. Our 20th winner will be announced in a minute. I'm going to go through my little spiel to close us out. That's it for today, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us and Blueland. I am hoping that this episode inspired you for the week and gave you some really good tactics to try with your brand. A huge thank you to Gina over at Blueland, and of course, you guys, the community, for being with us today during this short hour. The recording will be coming your way shortly in an email, along with a few additional resources to help you grow your business. Next week, we've got Magical Brands on the show. Magical Brands, they make the ultimate machine to elevate your edible making game in the kitchen. Yes, however you want to interpret that. So it's going to be an interesting episode, and we hope that you can tune in again. Trevor, do we have our 20th winner, sir?
We do. We're saying congratulations to Ashley Truong.
Go, Ashley! Woo! All right, so it was Jason and Ashley. Congratulations, you guys. You are getting Blueland starter kits. I'm so excited for you guys. I'm about to go purchase one myself. So have a great rest of your week, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Live from Your Laptop.